I was just looking for something to do on a Sunday morning to kind of get more involved in the community, and I stumbled upon Grace Church, and I liked it, so I stayed here.
Haddonfield is a typical American small town with parades, history, and Little League. Nestled along the Cooper River in South Jersey, Haddonfield has a great downtown with plenty of shopping, art, and churches. Including Grace Episcopal Church. This little oasis, our spiritual home. Grace Church was founded in 1842. The original structure was a modest one. A new church was built in 1896. We presume the congregation grew as fast as the English ivy on the facade. This year, 2017, Grace Church is blessed to celebrate its 175th anniversary. A lot has happened and changed since 1842. Civil War, depressions, world wars, electricity, air travel, telecommunications, automobiles, computers, and more. But while the world has changed, God has not. He has called us in this time and place to continue the works that His Son commanded. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself. What we've inherited brings us together to create a community that lets us try to live into our calling. Many have come before us. God willing, many will come after us. Grace Church is much more than the collection of buildings we use to worship and celebrate our community. First and foremost, it's the people, a diverse group from all over who are drawn together for comfort and meaning. For religious education. For fellowship. For service to others.
We were asked to leave our little church in Magnolia, so we went shopping for a church, and when we came here at an 8 o'clock service, we said, oh, this is just what we want. We'll come to church and we'll go home. However, in the next week, all of us were in choir, and I'm still in choir, and we love Grace Church for its friendliness, its family outlook.
When I first came, walked by the church and saw Anglican Episcopal Church, and the door was open, and I asked Father Pat, are you a member of the Anglican Episcopal Council? He said, never have been, never will be, and I said to him, we'll come. Because we had just gone through a thing with the church in Virginia wanting to leave the diocese.
I can only go on Saturday night because the buses don't run on Sundays. Father Wayne left, and so I said to myself, well, I gotta find another church. When I came up here, I was surprised because he would be here on some weekends to fill in for Father Pat. But Father Wayne got fed up with being called each week to come up there, so then he said something to Father Pat, and I never saw him again.
I was looking for a church when my 4 children were ages about 10, 8, 2, and an infant, and asked a lot of questions, mostly about education for the children, because that was my major concern, was a church that had a strong program for children. Asked a lot of questions, went to visit them. I went on my own. I went to visit the church by myself, went to the service, found out later that it was actually Father Pat's first service here as rector. He did get to the point in the service where he asked for any visitors to stand up, and I was too shy to do so. But after service, I did come into the parish hall, and I was overwhelmed by the number of people that were standing around talking. I didn't know what to do, and I'm standing in the doorway, and this woman walks up to me, and she takes me by the hand, and she pulls me in, and she says, "You must be Beth Ann, I'm Helen." I came home, and I said to my husband, I found our church. And that this is where we've been ever since.
We first started coming to Grace Church with Father Al for our wedding counseling in 1989.
We were shopping churches too.
Yeah, we had just moved to Collingswood, and we were shopping churches, and I grew up Lutheran. I was confirmed, baptized, and born into the Lutheran church and raised that way. And Erica was raised Roman Catholic. And a friend of mine from college who was in seminary and came to visit us, and we went out for dinner, and we were talking to him, and he said, the Anglican Church, the Episcopal Church, is a good kind of halfway medium between all of the above. And so we were encouraged by that, and found Grace Church because it was close. We found the warmth of Grace Church that was so inviting.
And David at the time was driving, so he was taking the train in Haddonfield, and Father Pat, I guess, was roaming around his house, and he started to talk to Debbie. So Debbie came home telling me, oh, there's a great church we can get involved in, and I was a little hesitant because I'm Catholic, and I haven't been to church in years because I was kind of disappointed with the Catholic Church, but I needed something from years. So he kept convincing me, and walked in, and me and David felt uncomfortable at church, considering we're like dealing Spanish.
I was just looking for something to do on a Sunday morning to kind of get more involved in the community, and I stumbled upon Grace Church, and I liked it, so I stayed here.
I can tell you that my wife and I were at other Episcopal churches since 1982 when we moved down here, and this is the third one, and as far as I'm concerned, it's the best in terms of the volunteer spirit that people have here and the outreach that this church is doing here.
In 1999, my husband and I were starting to plan our family, and I knew I wanted to have my children baptized in a church other than how I was raised. So I started going to churches in Haddonfield, and I attended services at several churches. And I didn't feel comfortable at any of them. And in the winter of 2000, I came to Grace Church, and I remember I was pregnant, and I was visibly pregnant, and Father Pat came to the very back of the church and saw me sitting there by myself and introduced himself and asked me a bunch of questions about me and my family, and it was just a very good experience, and it was clear that this is a place that I was wanted, and I hadn't felt that way about any of the other churches that I had attended in the weeks prior to that. And that's really the reason that I stayed, that this feeling of being wanted in this community and being a part of it, and from the very first time I came here.
Grace Church kind of accidentally, and I'm glad I did. I was helping with the IHOP program, Interfaith Homeless Outreach Council, and when they came to this church, I came over to help, and I fell in love with the church and the parishioners, and of course Father Pat. And it felt like home because I was brought up in a Catholic church, and being a Christian that I am, I wanted to be in a church that made me feel at home.
I was coerced by her.
You were invited.
Yes, I was invited. Sasha and I were looking for a church. We had previously gone to Berean Baptist Church, and my husband was a musician, and he wanted more progressive music, and they weren't progressive enough. So we went shopping, and we finally, Elaine said, well, why didn't you come to my church? And we went to a Presbyterian church, we went to a Gospel Community Church, we went to Mount Olive Baptist Church for a while in Magnolia. And we came here, and we found, not only did we find the people were the friendliest of all the places we were, they were the friendliest here, but the gospel message was being preached. In fact, I ran into one of my former churches, the pastor, and I told him where I was coming, and he said, I have one question. He said, do they preach the gospel? And I said, yes, they do. And it was all smiles. And that's why I stayed.
We first came to Grace Church when we were newly married, bought the house, and we wanted to find out I don't know how to say it. We just wanted to find out what Grace Church was about. So we were newly married. Yeah, I would say, yeah, the first time we came to Grace Church, that's right, yeah. We wanted to get more active in the community and choose a church that was a little bit closer to home, and we'd heard great things about Grace Church from other people in our community, in the neighborhoods, our neighbors, so that's how we first came to Grace Church.
I'm a cradle Episcopalian.
We moved to Grace Church because my daughter became a member here, and I tried it a couple times and I liked it, so we just started to come.
Yeah, I came in October, about 3 years ago, and I came to visit. And lo and behold, who comes walking out of the sacristy was Father Robert Legnani. He was on duty with Grace Church for the second Sunday service when Father Pat goes up to the concert room. And he had been a supply priest for our church, in a previous church in Clarksboro. And it was really, really a thrill to see Father Legnani being welcomed into the church. Of course, that day was my first Holy Communion here at Grace Church. And when it came time for the actual communion, I thought there was somebody outside the front door grabbing people to bring them into communion. They never stopped. It seemed like 20 minutes to half an hour for people to file past me receiving communion, which was outstanding. I was just ecstatic at the number of people attending.
We lived in Cherry Hill, and we went to church there, and then when we moved to Haddonfield.
We first came to Grace Church after we moved into town in early 2003, before we were married, and I had been here once before when I lived in Woodbury, and I liked the church, and as we were deciding how to build our life together and get married, that's when we first came to Grace, and we've been here ever since.
I had been very active in another church, and I'll just say I was dissatisfied with, if I didn't say something negative, one of my friends, Craig Lovett, happened to be on the vestry in this church, and he, told me about the church, and that's how I started attending.
We used to go to church down in Clarksboro, but the church was growing smaller, and with difficulties with traveling down there at night with Jerry with his eyesight, we were looking for something a little closer and started looking around at different churches. Jerry started going to different churches, and I knew Betty Phillips through Eastern Star, who belongs here, and knew that she came here, and I told Jerry to go check out, when he was looking around, I said, go check out Grace Church. And when Jerry went, did you find when you came?
I came here again about 8 years ago with Maria Fran Stevens. We also know her as Muffin. She is a friend of mine and my children, and we were looking for a church to belong to, and she invited us here. And we came to the Parish Hall Eucharist, and ever since then we fell in love with the people. I love to come here with my children. They've gone through church school here, and what we like most about it is how much we help the community, getting involved and trying to help others in our area.
Haddonfield.
I live in Cherry Hill.
And I live in Magnolia.
I live in Cherry Hill. Barrington, New Jersey.
We live in Sicklerville, New Jersey.
Westmont, New Jersey.
I live in Marlton, New Jersey with my wife Candace, who is also a member here at Grace Church.
We live in Haddonfield.
Merchantville, New Jersey.
Haddonfield.
Woodbury.
Haddonfield.
Live in Cherry Hill.
Cherry Hill, New Jersey.
And I'm also from Magnolia.
We live in Collingswood, New Jersey.
Haddonfield.
Haddonfield. Cherry Hill, New Jersey.
Came to Grace after having gone to Episcopal Church for about 30 years, maybe 30 years, and I am a Roman Catholic by birth, and this was the first church that made me decide that I really want to become an Episcopalian. And I talked to Father Pat about that when I first joined, and I went into his office and said, Father Pat, I said, I've decided I want to become an Episcopalian, but I don't want to go through all the stuff you have to do, you know, all the ceremony. And he just looked me in the eye. He said, Rob, he said, if you want to be an Episcopalian, you are one. That was it. So I signed up for the courses, and I went through it, and I got received here in November of 2010. That was a great day.
In 1960, I got on the vestry. We had the new minister, Father Al, come to us. He was here for 30 years. I was on the vestry and was senior warden when he left. Unfortunately, Father Al did not have a good retirement. He retired on January 31st and died on May 23rd of the same year. That was one of the sad things in my life here at Grace Church.
Someone I know at Grace Church, first person who comes to mind was Mr. George Fries. He was an amazing guy. He helped out with pretty much everything. He always knew who you were and was always there to talk to you. And of course, he helped out with acolyting, and we were all deeply saddened when he passed.
I actually got to break a commandment and come to church in a bathing suit. They had a murder mystery, and I was actually chosen as the murderer. So I was a surfer. My character was a surfer dude, so I was in church in a bathing suit, wandering around talking to all the parishioners, and I was actually the murderer, so people had to guess who I was and what I did. So that was probably one of my most memorable nights here at Grace Church.
What do you like about Grace Church? Well, like I said, I really don't see that much of it because I can only get here on Saturday night. Because we used to only have about 3 people at the beginning. Now there's over 10.
I've heard Father Pat say up to 50.
All right, well, they may have that then. Yeah. But on the Saturdays where we really don't get anybody, then there's definitely 10 that'll be there. But I have seen a larger amount than 10, but that's just to be safe.
I think it was during the first time we decided to do a wine tasting. The idea was that we were going to make the food ourselves, and Ed Strom offered to help make the food. So I looked up a bunch of recipes that would go with the various wines that we were going to be showcasing during the wine tasting, and we came up with the ingredients and supposed cooking times, and we were going to use the kitchen here at the church to do it. One of the things that we had on the menu was something that required 2 gross of pitted cherries. So I bought a cherry pitter, and I'm frantically pitting cherries. And another thing that we had was shrimp barbecued, and I had my barbecue grill outside, and we were trying to grill the shrimp, but I didn't want it to be undercooked, but I wound up overcooking it, and the shrimp was mushy and spongy, and the cherry pits mess had gotten everywhere. The food was pretty awful, generally, I would say. But everybody had a great time, and we wound up having a decent enough success, and it wasn't such a disaster that they didn't ask me to do it again the next year.
I was going through a difficult time in my life. I was separated from my husband. He was a verbal abuser. He didn't know it, and I was trying to do things in a kind way. And I was suffering. I had a full nervous breakdown. But these Grace Church people helped me through, and actually the homeless men helped me through, because I could have been homeless. And they taught me a lot about life. And it's not always drugs or alcohol that put a person on the street. It could be life, a person, in their case it would have been a woman or a job. And in my case, it was a job and a man that could have put me on the street. But thankfully, with the help of people, I pushed and pushed and pushed. I learned with my breakdown that I was a speck on earth. If I did not keep moving, have a strong faith, have a strong parishioner family, is that the way to say it? I would not have made it. Family and friends and my strong faith brought me through. So I want to thank Grace Church and the parishioners and Father Pat for helping me through. And of course, IHOP program also helped me through. And I'm glad to be here.
My experience with Grace Church was when we took the EYC on a mission trip to New Hampshire. And we actually did get over into Maine for a little bit. And it was quite an interesting experience working on repairing of a house and a garage and reshingling the roof, and working with the kids from our group and also kids from a whole bunch of other churches that were up there for that work camp. We ended up spending our evenings at a junior high school. And you can't see how tall I am, but you have to understand that at a junior high school, the shower heads come about to my chest. And the water was cold. Then I had to kneel down to take a shower, and the shower was cold. So you couldn't, once you got down, you just had to take the cold shower, and that was all you could do. Of course, the shorter kids didn't have any problem like that. And then we slept on the floor in the library. And that was a really great and fun experience with everybody snoring around you and sleeping on this hard floor. It was a long drive up. On the way back, we had a fun time. We stopped at an amusement park where everybody got to try rides that they had never tried before. And then we came back to a really nice time.
When I was 40 years old, 40, I guess that's midlife for the most part. I guess most people maybe they go through a midlife crisis at that point, and they might think about getting a red sports car or going out and partying, doing something crazy. Well, when I was 40, instead of that, I had this amazing revelation. I was studying the Bible, and I sort of was living in darkness at the time, and I decided that I was going to become Christian. This was after being Jewish for 40 years. My parents disowned me. My whole family disowned me, actually. And people who were my so-called friends at the time turned their back. There were times when I would run home in tears. I guess God gave me the strength to endure. The Beatitudes helped me through it because it said those who are persecuted will inherit the kingdom of heaven. So it strengthened my faith in the long run. So that's what I did when I was 40. Changed my life. Never have a regret about it. Quite a journey. Quite a ride.
We were married at Patuxent River in Maryland, and we were married by Lonnie Meacham. He was the Protestant chaplain. His family was in Norfolk here, and in visiting with him, I said, Brother Meacham, I'm trying desperately to understand your sermons, but I'm having a little difficulty. He says, Brother Carl, my family's in Norfolk. The last flight from flight test goes to Norfolk at this hour. If I miss that, I'm stuck here for a week. So I design my thing like I cut them off when it's time to go.
A great-great-grandfather of mine was a minister, an Episcopal priest, and he even came and preached here at Grace Church in about 1842, the year that this church was founded. So I have connection to early days of this church. I still love the church, and I attend as often as I can, although I've moved away from Haddonfield after 72 years. So I am very blessed to have Grace Church as my home church.
My maternal great-grandparents started the Episcopal Church in Charleston, West Virginia, where I met my husband. We went to church nursery school together.
I was on the vestry for several years, and that was early on in my career at the church. So it was a great way to become more familiar with just how the Episcopal Church works, because it is very different than the Catholic Church. So.
To the Phillies game. People who know me, I'm a big Phillies fan, and we went to a Phillies game that night where they had a wine tasting, a beer tasting, I forget which one it was, at the game. And Grace Church happened to have a wine tasting that night. So we had drank already, pretty much, at the Phillies game for free at the wine tasting. Came here, the wine tasting was still going on, came in, and we were a little rowdy. Bought a bunch of tickets for the baskets and started winning the baskets. And everyone was like, how did they come in at the end of the night, being so rowdy, and win everything? So that was pretty crazy.
Starting up the thrift shop, which was really a great thing for many, many reasons. A lot of great people. The fellowship made some good friends. We've also taken a lot of stuff that people did not want. We've turned it into cash for the church and the outreach. And we also help now all sorts of missions. Clothing for St. Paul's, St. Wilfrid's, St. Andrew's. So it's been a wonderful project.
I wear a cross, and this was the cross that I wore when I was baptized, and it was blessed then.
I've made many, many sandwiches And I prepare the jelly here. Actually, if you whip it a little bit, it spreads easier and it goes a little further. I enjoy that. We do that the first Saturday of every month. I enjoy the group that I work with. We make approximately 100 to 130 sandwiches. My girlfriends in the group have nicknamed me Jelly Jean, and that's fine with me. I get a kick out of that. That's my story.
The other thing that really has changed me at Grace Church was joining the choir. Now, joining the choir and singing is something that is not part of me, and I've never done it before until one Christmas season when Bill Loudon was the organist. He said to the church, we're going to do carol sing on Christmas Eve, and anybody wants to come join us at our practice on Thursday nights. So I said, I can sing Christmas carols like as well as anybody else. So I went down that Thursday night, and I got there early because I figured it'd be a crowd of people. Well, it was me and the choir. That was it.
I think the next year was the year that the power went out, just as the event was starting, and Irene Power was stuck in the elevator during the power outage with some of the food. So at least she had provisions, and we had lit candles, and that actually happened to be a fairly happy circumstance because we wound up using the candles as a regular thing every time we had the wine tasting from that point on.
There are a lot of amazing opportunities at Grace Church for outreach that goes out to many different towns and many different churches. But right here, a couple that stick out in my mind are IHOC, the Interfaith Homeless Outreach Council that helps homeless men find living places, and Kids Alley that helps make 100 lunches for kids in Camden.
The very first person I met was a woman who was carrying a little girl that was about the same age as my youngest, Meredith. And she held the child up and she said, "Good morning." I said, "Good morning." And she says, "This is Kaylee." So Kaylee Marshall was the first person I ever actually met at Grace Church.
We got a new priest who took over everything, including things that we used to do. And if you didn't go to Curcia weekends, then you were literally shunned. They would walk right by us. It was very Christian. Well, we asked for a meeting, and during that meeting, he said, "I suggest you find another church." So we all got up and we left, and we came here, and we're very happy. That was worse than my divorce. It was a terrible thing to go through. But I feel it's true. It's only a building. It's the people that make the building. It's the Christians inside, not the church. And they sure have Christians here.
In 1996, in August 31st, lightning struck the cross on the bell tower of our parish house. It knocked out all the computers, telephones, etc. It was a mess. And it happened to be the night before the 30th anniversary when Father Al came to us as a new minister. Sort of ironic, I think. Was he giving us a message? I wonder.
Went to the service, found out later that it was actually Father Pat's first service here as rector. He did get to the point in the service where he asked for any visitors to stand up, and I was too shy to do so.
through their confirmation process also had to contribute service hours. And again, it's a way for them to participate in something bigger. And whether it's after a service just helping bring stuff from the basement up for a rummage sale, just being involved in little small ways that make a big difference for the church and for other folks. And I think it's helpful for our family to be involved like that together.
There was another wine tasting where we tried to get the loudspeaker system up on the stage in the performance hall to work. Refused to work properly. Kept generating horrible feedback of sputters and pops. So I wound up having to shout myself hoarse.
That same night, a member of the church, Joyce McCauley, she's from Wales. My brother-in-law, Bill, from Atlanta, is dating a woman in Atlanta from Wales, same hometown.
He comes and helps at the thrift shop. I work at the thrift shop and love the thrift shop. We have marvelous, wonderful stories from here. When we first opened up, this man came in and he didn't have any shoes on. And he said, I only have women's shoes. He was in his stocking feet. And he said, do you have men's shoes? And I said, yes, and showed him where they were. And he tried a pair of sneakers on. And I said, walk around, because they're not a bargain if they don't fit. And he said, they fit. And I told him, they're a gift from Grace Church. And he asked if he could sleep where we bury the ashes. And I told him I thought maybe that was not the best place to sleep. There were other places to sleep. So we started talking, and I found out he was a compulsive gambler, had lost everything, his job, his home, his family, and he was rehabbing. So we encouraged him, and he actually moved in with a friend, came back later and bought a $5 TV set. And we have many stories like that, many stories like that.
After service, I did come into the parish hall, and I was overwhelmed by the number of people that were standing around talking. I didn't know what to do, and I'm standing in the doorway, and this woman walks up to me, and she takes me by the hand, and she pulls me in, and she says, you must be Beth Ann, I'm Helen. So, second person I met at Grace Church was Helen Orlando.
Joining the choir has been just a wonderful experience here. I've met some terrific people, and it's been really a real tool to make friends in the church here. But I sort of enjoyed doing the Christmas Eve. I did it again the following year. Then eventually I said, you know, those things that they sing on Sunday, I could probably sing those, and I can learn. And so now I've been in the choir for almost 6 years, and we're still learning, and believe me, we are blessed to have Max Esmus here. And, you know, and I'm sure others will tell you that, but we are truly blessed in terms of the things he does here. He's making the music program really part of outreach into the community, and we're very, very happy to have him here.
I cleaned the refrigerator with my son Owen, so that was a good something funny we did. We got to clean the refrigerator at Grace Church, but it was good for him.
A lot of green things inside the fridge?
There was all colors of the rainbow were in the refrigerator. But again, it was just a great experience to have Owen come in, our younger son, and participate in something that isn't about himself, isn't about gaming, isn't about something on television, but participating in something that just helps other folks and is a little bit bigger.
I have a faith story that I've shared with a lot of people, probably literally over 100 for sure, and I wrote that at 40. And what was amazing to me is that 40 is a huge number in the Bible. And that's how old I was when I had this amazing literal conversion experience.
My wife was Roman Catholic, and she decided that she wanted to become Episcopalian. I believe that was because of the experience she had when she was at Grace Church, how welcome we felt here, and all the great things that go on.
My major concern was a church that had a strong program for children.
When time allows it, there's, outside of coming here because it's very family friendly, there's so many outreach programs that occasionally, when time allows, we're able to devote volunteer time with Sunday school and other things at the church. So it just gives you a lot of things to
become active in.
Yeah, that's a good
A lot
way
of
to
fellowship opportunities.
Yeah.
It's amazing the growth of this church and the ministries here and the baptisms. It is absolutely phenomenal, the number of baptisms, and they're not stopping, they're not slowing down at any time. So the ministry here at this church is absolutely effectual. I wish all the mainline churches could learn from whatever it is that's continuing this process here at Grace Church to bring it out to the world. It really is phenomenal. The people are terrific, and it's an inclusive church. Regardless of what's happening around the country and in the state of the union currently, this is what Christ talked about, a glimpse of heaven on earth. He spoke about that, so it's here, especially when we have our communions. It's a wonderful spiritual time.
I like the community.
We've been here ever since. Grace Church has been fantastic for my family. I was looking for a place for a very long time to get back involved. Now with my baby. I think Grace is a great church. It does a lot for what Jesus had said to do with helping people.
I love it here. Father Pat's amazing, and everyone else that I've talked to here.
We had two children, Jeffrey and Lauren. They were both baptized here, and then we started coming here a little bit, probably more permanent sometime in the mid to late 90s.
I guess what really solidified us here, Fred Schindel was serving on vestry, and I don't remember if he was the senior warden or
I think he was.
maybe he was at the time, but he was launching the beer fest.
Yes.
And that was something of a hobby that I have. And so he was in front of us and he said, I'm doing this beer fest, so we talked about it. And I leaned over and poked him and said, hey buddy, you don't know me, but would you like some help? And he and I hit it off immediately.
We've been best friends with him ever since.
And we've been best friends ever since. And so the story, says, tell a story about helping out at Grace Church, was probably running Beer Fest. It grew over the several years. I guess the third or fourth year, I think babysitting had 35 children in it at one time. So it really grew into something big, and it continues today, even with the Beer and Wine Fest combined. There's this guy, his name is Chris Strasser, and he's an okay guy. And he was doing wine tasting, and they've merged now to be Good Libations. And it's just a really nice opportunity to come and raise money, but more than that, it's the food, it's the fellowship. It's everybody pouring out to help. It's people jumping in to pour beer. It's that keeps us coming back, and that makes us really feel like it's more than just showing up an hour or two every Sunday. It's family, and that's why we're here.
Even though we had moved a little further away, we've continued to attend Grace Church. Our children have grown up here, and this has just been a wonderful place for our family to be.
We've always sung in the choir at our previous churches. We've, always been in the choir, and always loved to sing. And when we came here, Jerry got nabbed when he came to visit. They came after him when they heard his voice and said, "Oh, you need to be in the choir." So of course we, started in the choir, and we love Max. Max is phenomenal, and the choir members are just, it's just like another family. They just, are just like wonderful. We have our, our choir parties, and it's just like, wonderful fellowship, and just invite anybody to come join the choir. Max can do wonders with your voice, so you don't have to be an opera singer to be in the choir. Just have a love for music, and just enjoy praising God in that way.
And the passing of peace.
Yeah, I'd say that's really a big event every week. The passing of the peace keeps us coming back. It's not, I guess Eric and I grew up in a tradition where you just kind of shake hands with a couple of people right around you. And when we had the passing of the peace and everybody poured out into the aisles and start walking up and down and hugging and really showing a warmth, a love, a sense of family that we just had never experienced at any church that I've ever been to.
We were going to a different Episcopal church locally, but we came here when our son was in 3rd grade because we wanted an environment that was more loving and more open and had a great program for kids, and we've been thrilled to be here.
That's really the reason that I stayed, that this feeling of being wanted in this community and being a part of it, and from the very first time I came here.
I started coming, I thought it was a very friendly church, a lot more down to earth than what I was used to, and I like the fact everybody seems to do something here rather than a handful of people. And that goes for anything from moving the furniture to taking part in the service.
I certainly have the feeling that it's a family here at Grace Church, and I think that would predominantly be the main reasons that we stay, because of our family. Right. It certainly has an extended church family, and that we enjoy a lot.
It's a great opportunity to do things. One of the reasons I really enjoy it here.
Children later, everybody's been baptized here, and it's just a welcoming community, and
it's the part of, it's sort of the fiber of who we are in Haddonfield and the area.
I think that the success of this thrift shop and the church are the people who volunteer. One of the things about this church is its inclusiveness, and it was the thing that convinced us that we liked it here and that we would stay, because we were founding members of St. Bartholomew's, and we thought nothing to hop in a car and go there 10 minutes. But this church was so inclusive and welcoming, and we decided to stay, and here we are.
We wound up sitting, I guess, right behind Fred and Carol Schindel and their children, who at the time were only in grade school. And I guess Freddie's in college.
College now, and Katie's on her way.
Katie's just gotten accepted to Temple. So that was that many years ago. And what kept us here we came here and there was a service that's kind of like what they do every first Sunday, the Eucharist, with the children. But it was done in the main church. Father Pat led it. And it was such a different experience to have somebody say, listen, if you want to have questions, if you're not sure why we do something, just raise your hand and we'll stop and talk about it. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting that we're going to learn about why we do something rather than just doing it because somebody told us to or because it's written in a book that way. Well, of course, and then we stood up and sang Ubi Caritas in the middle at the end of church, and that was just kind of very different and exciting.
Grace Church has truly been a second home and a second family for us.
When we moved here, we thought we could go back to St. Bart's. However, they were having the same problem that they were having in Virginia. And when Father Pat said, welcome, we came. And loved it because it does include everybody. And that's the thing about the thrift shop. It's a place for people who weren't long-term members of the church to come and volunteer. And Nancy Young is one of the people who got it off the ground in the beginning when Father Pat asked her. It's just a wonderful place, really. And we're glad we're here, aren't we, Carl?
Yes, we are.
In more ways than one. We're just glad we're here.